Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Iconic Dollcast. Why did I say that so weird? Welcome to the Iconic Dollcast. My name is Sage, your host, and welcome back to another episode all about dolls. Thank you so much for listening. Today, I am chatting with Barbie fan Cassie, who runs the wonderful Instagram and TikTok accounts Dolls on the Scene, and this was so much fun. Honestly, Cassie was one of the most relaxed and easy to speak with guests I've ever had on the show, and this is truly one of my favorite episodes. We talked all about the importance of play, the misconceptions of Barbie and Barbie collectors, how important it is to have a space where you live to put all your things, big and small. And yeah, this one, I think any doll collectors out there listening, I think you're really gonna like this one and relate to it. Just a little bit on the subject of play. We've talked about this many times. Specifically, please check out my episodes, my Dudes with Dolls episodes with Peter Andrew Danzig, where we really focused on the power of dolls and toys and their impact it has on us when we're kids. You know, playing with dolls and toys was so crucial to my development. Studies have also shown, specifically that playing with dolls can teach social skills, communication. It can teach kids about social interactions, processing information, self-expression, which I think is very important. And of course, it can help with imagination and creativities and so many other things. I think the only reason I am such a creative person is because of all the hours and hours I spent playing with my dolls and toys as a kid. And it's sad because I do feel like kids today are not getting a lot of those important and necessary things these days because they are so wrapped up in technology and their games and whatever. And hey, look, I don't think technology is bad. It's obviously very important in this day and age, but I just feel like kids now are missing out. I also feel like adults who grew up with so much emphasis on technology are realizing what they've missed out on. So the good news is, I think a lot of kids who did grow up on the more technology-focused side of things are realizing what they missed out on. And in this interview, you'll hear Cassie, who is a professor, talk about bringing dolls into play for class and the students loving it. And we'll talk about it in the interview, but I do think maybe some of these kids didn't play with toys as much growing up. And so just finally getting to do that as an adult has really maybe had an impact on them, which I think is really exciting. And I also think adults that did grow up playing with toys and maybe have perhaps forgotten along the way how special it was for them are remembering how important it is. And this makes sense because toy and doll sales are up higher than they have been. And I think a lot of the people who are buying dolls and toys today are adults. So I don't think that's something that has been as consistent as it has been lately. And again, maybe that's just because adults are remembering what it was like and how important it was to them. Another thing we are going to focus on in this interview is just the importance of diversity in Barbie specifically. Barbie has come a long way, but it wasn't always as easy to go out and find a Barbie that maybe represented you in the way that you wanted it to. Nowadays you can go to Target and you can get a Barbie in almost any skin tone, any kind of we've got Barbies with disabilities, we've got Barbies with prosthetics. It's just really amazing how far Barbie has come. And it was really nice talking with Cassie about how this has kind of gone over the last few years and how important it is and just how nice it is to just feel represented. Everyone can feel represented by Barbie now, which is just a really, really great thing. We also talk about just how important our doll spaces are for us and how important it is to just, even if you have like a very small collection, it doesn't matter what it is, it doesn't matter how big it is, just having a designated area for those things to be is really nice. I just got, put together my doll room last year, and As chaotic as it is in here, I find it really relaxing. Especially when I need to get stuff done, like editing the podcast or working on the podcast or doing anything for my regular job, or even when it comes to Britney Spears custom dolls, I can really sit down in here and just get so much more done than I would if I was hanging out in my living room. I don't know why. I just feel very comfortable in here. And so that's a big thing we talked about. And I think you guys are going to really like this episode. We are going to jump right into it. As always, please follow me on Instagram at iconicdollcast or Britney Spears Custom Dolls. You can follow me on TikTok at Britney Spears Dolls. If you want to look me up on YouTube, I've got some video stuff over there. That's just YouTube. Search Iconic Dollcast and it'll be there. Thank you guys so much for listening. And here is my interview with Cassie, Dolls on the Scene, all about growing up with Barbie, the development of Barbie's diversity, the importance of play, and so much more. All right, everyone. Today I have Cassie on the show, and Cassie runs the lovely Instagram account Dolls on the Scene. And today we're going to talk all about her doll journey. Cassie, thank you so much for being on the show. How are you doing?
I'm so good. Thanks so much for having me, Sage.
Absolutely. I love your account. I'm always looking at your content, and I thought you'd be a great fit for this show. So before we get into your doll journey, tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm based out here in Los Angeles County in Southern California, and I moonlight as a fashion professor. I teach marketing and business classes here in LA. And then I also work in e-commerce and do some consultancy. So that's a little bit about me.
Amazing. And I'm going to assume everything is all good with you with the fires and stuff.
Yeah. Thank you so much for checking. Yeah. We're here. We're safe. Yeah.
Good. I'm
Appreciate
so
that.
glad to hear that. It's
Yeah. Thank
devastating what's
you.
happened there, but we're
Yeah.
going to stay positive today.
That's
So,
right. That's right.
let's get into dolls. So, how long have you been into Barbie and dolls? Let's start there.
Yes, as a little kid, I have a twin brother, and we both received our dolls at the same time. I want to say for like our fourth or fifth birthdays, we received the roller skate Barbie and Ken doll. There's a picture of us somewhere, and we're doing kind of an obligatory pose with our dolls. But that was my first foray. I stuck with it. I love the storytelling, kind of an escape from reality in some ways, dressing, styling, and I'm so glad that I came back to it many years later.
Oh, okay. So that's great. So a lot of the times on the show, we talk about how, as many of us were growing up with dolls and we loved our dolls and our Barbies, there's always that time where we kind of took a little break just because we're maturing, and that's not to say that Barbie is immature, but when you're 13 years old, sometimes we drift away from the things we love just for a little bit, but I find that we always come back to them, which is
Yes.
awesome. It's one of the greatest things I think about dolls. And when it comes to like Barbie, because I assume Barbie is your main girl, right? Or we're really
Yes.
yeah, okay, great. So when it comes to Barbie, what kind of Barbies do you collect?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So I'm grateful. I talk about it every now and then in some of my posts, but I'm so grateful to my mom. She kept my doll. So I definitely played longer than some of my friends. I had one really good friend, and we were like in middle school, junior high, kind of still sneaking and playing. But I would say by the time I went to college is when I kind of was like, okay, maybe I'll come back to you in a later life. Maybe if I ever have kids, even if I don't, maybe just later in life. And so mom always hoped for that. She kept them and gave them back to me, I want to say about 10 years ago, maybe. So when I look back at my collection, I definitely have 80s and 90s Barbies that I really enjoyed as a kid. And then when I came back to them was really fashionistas when they were really moving into more inclusive, body types and skin tones and things like that. So I would say my collection's kind of a mix of the 80s, 90s, but then also a lot of the newer looks dolls and fashionistas and things like that. So there's always just something about, a certain face mold or hair that I'm always really open to. But yeah, I don't know if I can pinpoint just one, but I do like the nostalgia of the dolls that I came out with, like, for example, that I grew up with. I think my first African American, my first black doll, my aunt got me was Peaches and Cream. And it
Oh.
was, I remember like opening up the box and I was like, oh, she's black, she's pretty, she's beautiful. And I still have her. So I'm glad that my mom just knew, okay, let me keep these. And she gifted them to me. So I'm so glad. Gave them back, I guess.
Oh, that's so amazing. I'm a 90s kid, so I love my 90s Barbies. I think my first Barbie ever was glitter hair Barbie. Do you know that one?
Yes, yes.
Iconic. Yes.
Right?
Love the 90s gimmick of it all. But
For
anyway,
sure.
so that's amazing. So glad, grateful for your mom. My grandma kind of did the same thing. She just, I mean, there was definitely some Barbies that we had to part with. And I'm so bummed because as an adult, like I learned how to, refurbish a Barbie. And I'm
Yeah.
so bummed because there's so many dolls that, we either gave away or threw away that I'm like, oh, I could have fixed that in my adulthood. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah, I feel you on that. I found it, or I thought of some that I had, and I think I just tossed them out. Even when I started collecting again, like maybe the head on some of the Kens had melted or popped off, and I just was like, oh, bye. And then I realized, oh, I got a free body too.
I
So
know.
now we know.
Now we know that's what's important. So, what about Barbie speaks to you most?
Ooh, I love that question. I think it's this idea of her being anything. And I really did imagine myself in, different stages of life or careers. And that was really through the lens of the dolls and the storytelling that I would create, even with my sister, who wasn't necessarily into dolls, but it was sweet. She would play with me and we would just create these really fun stories and imagine ourselves, whether it was a mother, an executive, like whatever the case may be, like she could do everything, anything. And then we saw ourselves like we could do anything too. So,
That's
yeah.
amazing. And I just think one of the most important things about Barbie that gets overlooked, especially by critics, is just how incredibly amazing Barbie can be at expanding a kid's imagination. And I know that today things are a lot different, especially when it comes to the kids and what they're playing with. And that kind of bums me out just because it's like you, I mean, I just countless hours and hours I would
Mhm.
play with my Barbies and just like come up with the craziest shit. And
Right.
it's like, but it just taught me so much, I think, about myself.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that is so important that kids are kind of missing out on today, which is something that, I find kind of disheartening. But like you said, like Barbie's still around. And I also love the fashionista Barbies. I think they're
Right.
great, especially I think for all the criticism that Barbie gets, like she has come such a long way. And when it comes to
Hmm.
inclusivity and all that stuff, I
Yeah.
think what Mattel has done is really great. And it's unfortunate because I feel like Barbie always has a target on her back. It's like they're doing all of these great things, but now people want to come at Barbie for being so cheap. You know what I mean? And I'm
Right.
like,
Right.
but like she is. And I think it's great that they've made all these different types of dolls just so readily available to everyone.
Absolutely.
And I
Yeah.
think I think again that's something that gets overlooked with her a lot. So,
Yeah.
I just Barbie for the win. She can be anything. It's the cheesiest tagline ever, but it's so perfect for
It
Barbie. You know what I
is. It's so
mean?
real. Like it resonates with us, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
absolutely.
Just so
It
many
really
hours
does.
playing with her and being like, I could do this, or I could do this, I could be this. It's just really
Uh-huh.
important. And I wish people would focus on that more, especially when it comes to criticizing Barbie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I do, for sure.
What do you think is the since we're talking about that, what do you think the biggest misinterpretation of Barbie is?
Yeah, I remember being in college and I wrote a paper. It was like an anthropology class and a really, really fun class. It was like about pop culture. And at one point, in the semester, we got to write a paper about any pop culture icon. So thought I had a book at the time. I'm going to write a Barbie book. I'm going to write about Barbie. And I remember my teacher, I went to him. We had to kind of get approval. So I said, oh, I want to write about Barbie. And he was kind of like just this smirk on
Right.
his face. Barbie, like, do you the negative, body image? He just started going through a list of things. I, let him talk, and I said, well, why don't you give me the opportunity to write about the positive attributes and what I can share my personal story. I can share the history, I can also, talk about feminism, all of that too, but I can also talk about my personal connection with Barbie. So he said, okay. And so that was a great opportunity for me to look kind of like we're talking about, kind of connect like a little bit deeper. What do you think about Barbie? But lots of, negativity for sure about the body image. And I think a lot of pressure put on one doll or company to kind of be all things to everyone. And so I think it's amazing that they're doing all this with inclusivity, but it's also like, it's a toy. There's a message behind the toy that's important too, but also one doll can't carry the weight of like all the different, issues and topics and things like that. And I think they are doing such a good job about it. But I think a lot of, and I've heard some collectors talk about, which is great to see that maybe they weren't allowed to play with Barbie for various different reasons, right? And then that opportunity for them as they got older to embrace the doll and all of its forms and iterations was, I think, a beautiful way to kind of tap into the inner child, which is probably we can all resonates with us in some capacity. So it'll always be a part of me, my story, I believe. And I wanted to mention too, so I'm a mother. I do have two daughters, 10 and 12, and they had some friends come over to the, to play into the doll room. And I said, hey, you girls are more than welcome to play, with the dolls. And they were like, oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So they played, they had so much fun. Hours later, their mom, comes to the door downstairs, and I'm like, oh, come on up I'll show you the doll room. She comes up and she's like, what? Like, I'm trying to interpret, like, I don't know if she thinks this is weird or if she likes it, but she said, wow, my girl's other friends, they would never play with dolls.
Huh.
So it was this, yeah. So, I said, oh, let's unpack that a little bit. So it was this idea of either it being for very, very young kids, maybe you just play for a couple of years when you're really little, you don't play anymore, or they saw it as a little bit trivial. Whereas, oh no, my kids are working in math books or playing an instrument, and couldn't be both. It just felt like it could only be one or the other. So it was an interesting conversation, but every time those girls come over, guess what? They want to come play with Barbie and
Of
create stories and
course.
style, of course. So I'm like, it's a safe place. You can always come here and do that. But it is interesting perceptions that, people still have. And even as a professor, I'll have to share this too. I did this activity with my students on the first day. That was just a couple weeks ago for the term. And I did the flushable fashion that Jen Yang does. And I brought in Barbie dolls, and I made sure to bring lots of different dolls, different skin tones, different hair types. And I heard some of the students, they're probably in their early to mid 20s, and they were saying, oh, I never saw Barbies like this before. They didn't have dolls like this when I was a kid. And they were just able to escape a little bit and just have fun. They created fashions for the dolls. And one girl said, this was the most fun that I've had in college.
Oh,
To just take a step back. Yeah, we're going to do the assignments, we're going to do the lecture, we're going to do all those things. But the lecture was about creativity. And so let's just have fun and play, because a lot of us don't do that enough. And so Barbie definitely reminds us to do that.
oh, of course. And like with the imagination, I
Yeah.
fully agree that Barbie really taught me how to use my creativity, and she's so important for that. And it just bugs me so much. And I think a lot of the kids today also, even kids that are now in their 20s and stuff, I
Yeah.
think I think the issue with them and maybe like the stigma on dolls is that they're never presented the opportunity to play with them, because like
Exactly.
parents in some way, shape, or form are like, well, no, like this isn't a great thing for you to be doing. And it's so different now because I feel like that
Yeah.
is a more common stance that people take. And I think it's just because parents have forgotten about their childhood and they've forgotten
Mhm.
just what a gift it is to have something that you can relate to and be creative with and use your imagination on. And I think a lot of kids today are just not presented with opportunities to look at. It doesn't even have to be Barbie. I think it's just
Yeah,
toys in general, you know what I mean?
absolutely. I do.
And since we're talking about kind of misinterpretations as an adult
Mhm.
with a doll room, I have one as well, as you
Yeah, I
can
love
see.
it. Yeah.
I want to ask you, what do you think some of the misconceptions of being an adult doll collector are? And how do you deal with them?
Yeah, I've gotten, or sometimes I've picked up on this attitude of maybe not wanting to grow up or still holding on to your childhood because you have issues, which I'm like, oh, we all have things
We
that
all do, yeah.
we all have issues, but that and yeah, almost like not taking yourself seriously, and then it can creep into, or are you like a weird doll person that's a hoarder? Because that
Right.
was some of the shows that were coming out too, 10,
Right.
15 plus years ago. So there was an opportunity at one of my jobs when it was during the pandemic and we were all working virtual, and we would have cribs, which was such a fun idea. We had virtual meetings. And I remember this particular meeting, there was probably about 100 people on the meeting, and I had signed up a week before to do cribs. So it was kind of like a play on MTV Cribs, and you show people your crib, whatever you wanted to show. So I was like, I'm going to show my doll room. So I'm walking around. I think I used, the app or whatever. And I was showing people the room. And people had so much fun just seeing the space. I had someone working at their computer to show like how they're working, really hard during this busy Q4 season, if that's what the season was, for holiday. And it was just we all kind of let our guard down, and it was a way to get to know something about someone. Someone else collected skateboards and had really cool artwork on their room. So it helped. Empathy is what I was going to say too. You were saying so many great things about the benefit of play. I believe there's some research done that Mattel did with another organization to show that empathy is really enhanced and increased with doll play in particular. And I feel like when we share our hobbies and extensions of ourselves, you get to know more about people and see what they enjoy. So I would love to see more of that and less of judgment, like, that's weird.
Right.
You know.
Totally. And I think I always tell people like 9 times out of 10, if I'm like telling someone who I don't know about my doll room, they're really into it. Like they're
Yeah,
very like, whoa, like this is amazing.
right.
And I think it's because like a lot of misconceptions come from or go at people that people don't know. You don't know them. But when you're
Yes,
talking to someone about something you love, it's a lot different, right?
it
Like,
is.
and there is that awful stigma like, oh, adult doll collectors are weird and creepy. And it's like, yeah, but if you're talking to me in real life, like you would see, like I'm not, I'm just like pretty
Right.
normal. And I love how you talked about how someone showed off their skateboard collection. I always look at it like it's no different than that. It's like people
Yeah.
people people are into what they're into, and it's like
Yeah.
there's no difference in being an adult doll collector than collecting skateboards or even
Yeah.
like stamps or coins or whatever. It's just
Yeah.
what resonates with the person. And like I said, 9 times out of 10 people are very like, wow, this is so cool, they want to know more. But every once in a while you get that one person who is just very like, ugh, like I don't
Right.
I don't understand this. And it's like, okay, well, I'm not asking you to understand it. You either do or you don't. And I feel so good to be in the place that I'm at now. And I mean, I've always been very like, yes, I like dolls. And I am
Right.
very proud of it. But it's like,
Yeah.
it took me a really long time to figure out how to respond to that like negative reaction. And it's like, well, I'm in a place now where it's like, I don't even have to react to that because it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well,
Yeah.
all right, whatever. You know what I
Right.
mean?
All good. I shared it. Okay. Be
Yeah.
well. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Totally.
But generally, people are like really fascinated, and I do love. It's so amazing to bring people into my doll room. I'm sure you feel the
Yeah.
same because especially with adults, I would say, because they're like, "Oh my God, I had that Barbie. Like, I need to find her." And it's like, yes, you do. Like, find your Barbie. It'll bring you
Yeah.
back in a way that you would never expect. You
Ah,
know.
so true.
And I always tell people who like maybe don't have their Barbies from when they were a kid. I'm like, think of that one Barbie that you
Mhm.
loved her. It was your absolute favorite. Put some money into it, buy that Barbie again, and
Mm.
experience what it's like to open her out of the
Yeah.
box because you will
Ah.
feel so fulfilled. You know?
You will. You will.
It's
Ah, we
so
know
important.
firsthand. It is. Absolutely.
Yes. How many dolls do you think you have in your collection?
I know. I was thinking about this earlier, and I asked my older daughter. We were kind of laughing about it because Will I ever bring myself to count? I don't know, but I would say 1,000.
Nice. That's a
If I
great
had to put a
number.
number,
Yeah.
we're just gonna say 1,000. We're gonna say a
That's
thousand.
that's I would say I'm around there too. It's just kind I mean I say this every single time. It's so funny. People are probably like, "Yeah, no one's gonna know the answer to this, Sage." It's like I don't know the answer to
I
to
know.
that
Are you
question.
ever
You know?
gonna count? Do you think?
No, unless I'm
No.
like I th I think if I ever move,
Oh
then maybe if I'm
yeah.
packing things up, maybe I'll go
Yes,
for
that'd be
it
the
and count
time.
them out. But I feel like
Yeah,
there's just dolls everywhere in my house anyway, so I definitely miss one or three or 10. You
I
know?
know. Do you have some other ones outside of your doll room?
Oh yeah.
Ditto.
They're everywhere.
Yeah, right,
Everywhere.
right.
But I try to keep most of them in here, but I like to display shit too. So if I get a brand new Barbie and I think she's beautiful, she's going out in the kitchen or
Yeah,
something. You know what I
right,
mean? So
right.
I think 1,000 is a good guesstimate.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Hmm.
We'll leave it there. Mhm.
Yep. And do you have a favorite Barbie of all time?
I do. I do. It is the Barbie and the Rockers. Not the, I do have the original Barbie and the Rockers, but it was the one, she's an afro.
Mm-hmm.
She's a drummer, the Barbie and the Rockers drummer. There's something nostalgic about her features, and I don't know what the exact mold is, but it takes me back to the 80s, her face, her features, and then the afro. I just was
Yes.
like, yeah, I used to wear afro. So I'm like, yes, honey, I like it. So she's one of my go-tos. I think she actually might be back here.
Oh, there she is. I can see her. Yes,
You
I know
see her?
exact. Yep. Mm-hmm. I know exactly. I know exactly the one you're talking about.
That's my girl. That's my
That
girl.
is your girl. And so, I mean, obviously Mattel's come a long way with their representation, especially when it comes to black dolls. And
Yes.
I know it took them a minute to get there. I do think there is a little bit of a I mean, we got our first, black Barbie in, I think it was what, like 1979, 1980. There were
Yeah.
black Barbies before. They were labeled as Christie or whatever.
Hmm.
And now everyone is just Barbie, which I think comes with its pros and cons because I do
Sure.
miss like Christie. Like
Yeah.
I love how they have their own separate,
Uh-huh.
personalities and stuff, but I also understand why they
Yeah.
would make that shift. And I think it's a smart move because they're all Barbie. We're all Barbie.
Yes.
Everyone who's seen the Barbie movie now knows like everyone's Barbie. How has it been for you watching Mattel evolve with specifically their black dolls? How is that? I mean, for me, it's been amazing. So
Yeah. Oh, I've loved to see it. Just the different shades, the different iterations, the embrace of feeling like you can see yourself. That's been really great to see, and especially with my girls coming up to see that. And then, of course, they can play with whatever doll they want, but to see themselves represented, on a particular doll, I think is it's pretty epic. Yeah.
it's amazing. And I will say, I mean, I grew up with black dolls. It was very important for my grandma to teach me, inclusivity and diversity before it was really a thing in Barbie world. So I had Christy, loved her. I still love Christy. I think she looks the best in all colors. But talking with people growing up, especially like we're kind of in the same time frame, I think a lot of people have told me how difficult it was for them to find black dolls. And I cannot emphasize enough how important I think it is now that you can go to Target and Walmart or wherever there is all dolls available to
Mhm.
you, any kind you could think of. So, was that ever a struggle for you growing up?
It was. And I grew up in a lot of white spaces too. So it wasn't like I saw as many people that looked like me. So then the dolls, that was hard at times and kind of questioning, myself and, self-esteem
Right.
struggles there. Yeah, for sure. It was a struggle. So coming back to dolls and being at the store and being like, oh,
There she
okay.
is.
Right? A doll with the afro. Like I snatched the first dose. She was curvy and had an afro. And deeper skin tone. I grabbed that doll so quick. Took
As you
her
should.
home, gave her afro puffs and braided her hair and gave her twists. Like I stayed up so late just having fun, and it took me back to I wish I had this was when I was younger. I'm glad they've come a long way and I can still enjoy it and I can enjoy it with my daughters. So yeah.
Good. Yeah. It's so amazing what they've done. And it's just
Yeah.
like, like I said, any kind of Barbie you could think of, any skin tone. You know, we have dolls in wheelchairs. We have dolls who perhaps have alopecia or something like that, and
Yeah.
it's just incredible. And it's like I think Barbie's come a long way, and I'm just so happy about it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, I
Now,
do.
yeah. Now, getting into the doll room, because this is the best part about being a doll collector, in my opinion. So I just recently was able, I had previously had a roommate for a million years, and
Yeah.
I had always wanted to turn this space into my doll room. And so prior to him, moving out, all my dolls were either everywhere or like my closet was just like crammed,
Hmm.
absolutely crammed. And to finally be able to, he moved out and it was kind of sad, but I was like, okay, bye. Like,
Right.
I am so ready for this. See ya, so now finally being able to have the room, I just had like the most amazing time setting it up because I had a vision for it. This like the
Yeah.
whole 9 years that he lived here. I was like, well, when he leaves one day, I know exactly how this is going to go. So I think being able to create a space like that is so satisfying and amazing. And also, can bring you back to when you were a kid, it's so nice to have a place where you can put all your amazing things. So tell me about your doll room and what that's like for you.
Yeah, first of all, let me say I saw your video and it was so fun to hear you and see you just walk through the different collections and the dolls and your considerations and shelving. So thanks so much for sharing that. I love seeing it.
Yeah.
Yes. So this room doubles as a doll room and my office, my home office. So I've had to be strategic and I've changed it. We've lived here for 4 years now. I've changed it a few times. So that's been fun to kind of rehome things or even just moving a shelf from one side of the room to the other. And by the way, there is a dollway, which just means the hallway has
Yep.
some shelves
Yep.
too.
Hmm.
But this has been fun. This isn't the original house that I had back in the day, but my husband during the pandemic gifted this to me. It was such a sweet surprise. And so I will just the window is here and when the light hits the dream house when I'm sitting here doing work in the afternoon. It just makes my heart so happy. Does a little dance. So that's been fun to see, to have this here kind of as a focal point. And then I decided to just add these little shelves. They're just from like the thrift store. I think my mom brought them. And I love the play on the symmetry that kind of just plays on the little shelves. And then I just have like little trinkets and a doll photography book. Shout out to Bella who wrote that and has a photography in there. And then just other little things. This is inspired by you. After I saw your video earlier today, there's
Oh,
like a little spice rack or something, and I just put some dolls up, and I want to do more of that. And so, yeah, I'm getting, and then some of the other doll lines that I really enjoy, like the Naturalistas, and I need to put some fresh dolls in here too. And then, little lights and little books and things like that. Things that make me happy, which I think is important for anyone, whether you have a full room, a corner of a room, a hallway, whatever space for you is bring the things out that spark joy and that make you happy. And so even this little shelf thingamajiggy. And I think it's for candles. It's like little votive holders, but I have brushes, all the doll brushes that come in the boxes. I put some
oh,
there, little clips. So it's kind of like a nod to like hair styling because that's something fun that I like to do. And then of course the little houses and then some mini Barbie land. So it's something I could rotate if I wanted to, but it feels like little vignettes, little like visual displays that feel like thematic in this room. That makes me so happy. My escape.
my escape as well. And it's just so I love that. So thank you for watching the doll room tour. So it's just
Yeah.
so what I love to do. So I move things around a lot and I have the time of my life doing it. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, especially like we just had like a snow day a few days ago.
Mhm.
And I have to tell you something so funny about my doll room tour video is like halfway through filming it, I was like, I think I could change some of this around. So I ended up going to Target and it was snowing and I was like, oh God, I can't believe I'm doing this, but I have to. Got some more shelving. Shelving is very, very important, I think, especially when you have a lot of stuff to display. But
Yes.
also I love going to thrift stores and finding things that like you said, you can just flip a spice rack upside down and the dolls will fit perfectly on it.
Oh,
Or you can use a candle holder and you can put little trinkets in it. I have like a vase and it's in the kitchen out there. And I have all my Barbie brushes in it. Just like that. So it's just like so fun to get creative and think of like how could I use this to improve my doll room? And so that's something that I always have so much fun with, just finding little ways to make things work, you know? And I
yeah.
also love what you said about it doesn't matter if you have a full room or a little corner or like maybe a closet or something. Put what you love in it and it's just going to be your happy space. And I think for a long time, like especially cuz I had a roommate, it was like, "Oh god, I hope this isn't awkward for him." It wasn't, so it was fine,
Right.
but you know, it took me a while to get to that place where it's like, "Well, I love this, so I'm going to put it out for all to see." You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I
and
do.
just having the doll room space for me is I mean, it's been so much fun to, you know, I work in here all the time now and it's like
Yeah.
even when I'm doing something that I should be doing somewhere else in the house, it's like I'm just gonna go do it in my doll room because it's just a very calming. It's chaotic in here, but it's calming for me, you know?
Yeah. And what a beautiful backdrop too for your show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been great for that as well. And I also love being able to, you know, especially in the doll community online, which you're very familiar with. It's nice to share our collections with people and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
looking at other people's stuff. Like
Me too.
I could probably go into your doll room and spend hours in there just
Right?
examining everything that's in there and comparing and getting ideas and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. So much inspiration. Absolutely. Yeah. It's so
Yes.
fun in here. Yeah.
That's it. It's just fun. You know what I mean?
It
Um,
is.
when it comes to like the online communities, like how do you get involved with that? How when did you start getting into that? I will tell you, like I didn't even know there was a whole social media world out there until I started my Britney Spears custom doll business and was like, what? I
I
can't believe there's
know.
so many people out there just like me, and it's just been an incredible ride since. So, how did you get into that, and what were you as shocked as I was? Because I
I
was like,
was like, who knew there was a whole subculture within social media? I didn't even know. So I had gotten on, I want to say Instagram, maybe 2011, 2012, something like that. So I had my own little account doing stuff every now and then. Once I got my Barbie collection back, I would show a thing or two and people would be like, oh, that's cute, that's fun. And then it was the pandemic. I think I was following Grandma Gets Real already on my main account. So then I started maybe just looking up hashtags and thinking, oh, wait a minute, there's like a lot of people out here. So when I had more time, you know, we were all at home, I decided it was probably March 2020. And I started Dolls on the Scene and just started putting my pictures and little bits of my collection. I wouldn't show myself for probably about 6 months. And I don't know if it was just like, even though it was already part of the community, I did struggle with that a little bit. Like, is this weird? I just want to keep it about the dolls? And then I feel like little by little, maybe I would show my neck down and I would be holding a doll. And then little by little, especially when some of the challenges were coming out or the twinning, I was like, this is an extension of me, and I don't wanna hide behind it. And I know some people don't
for
put their
sure.
self, and that's totally fine. But I felt like it was time to kind of be unashamed about it. I'm like, okay, this is me. This is what I do, And I think that endears us to each other when you get to see that human touch and that human connection, which so many of us were craving during that time and still are. So that's been fun. So I guess I'm coming up on 5 years, which is hard to believe. But yeah, that's kind of what got me started. I'm, branching out. I would love to do more YouTube. I just need to make the time for it. But I would, yeah, continue to kind of extend the community and branch out more for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a great tool, and I do think respect to anyone who doesn't like to show themselves on social media. I
Yeah.
totally understand that, but I do feel that when people do get comfortable enough to do that, it brings a whole new level of genuineness to everything. Where it's like
Yeah.
I can see the person who I've been following for so long, and now like I
Right.
feel even more connected with them, and so that's a really great thing about it. And I do feel like it's pretty liberating too when you're like, this
It
is me,
is.
here
Uh-huh.
I am. And and I also love the aspect of social media. I know there can be some toxicity and negativity on social media, and it is what it is. That's how life is, and that's just kind of how I look at it. And sometimes it gets super frustrating, but at the end of the day, I think the pros outweigh the cons. And like something that's so amazing about social media is I do feel when it comes down to it, the most of the doll community is willing to help each other. Like
Yeah.
when there are new doll drops and everyone's freaking out because they need to go get this doll, it's like, no, you got to look here and you got to look here. It's
Uh-huh.
just been extremely helpful for me, especially when to find newer dolls. And if people know if I'm looking for a doll or something and they find it, they'll grab it for me, and that's just been
Sweet.
awesome as well. So I do
Yeah.
think while social media can definitely come with a lot of negatives, I think with doll community wise, it's more positive than ever. And I do, like you said, there's a lot of people, especially since the pandemic, who have
Mhm.
kind of found themselves and realized, hey, I really like this and
Yeah.
I want to share my love with the world, which I think is a beautiful thing. I
Yeah.
do think doll collecting has become somewhat trendy in the last few years, which is fine, and we're not going to harp on that, for more than just a second. But there are, sometimes people do things because they like attention and stuff, and I'm not knocking that because
Yeah.
if you're a natural born person to be on a camera and out there for the world, more power to you. But I think something really interesting I found from the doll community online is just to see the enormous amount of
Yeah.
differences between all of us.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I so appreciate that too. Different backgrounds, different upbringings, different realities presently, different stages of life, and even just different elements of the collection. Like, oh, they're really into that era of dolls or this era of dolls. And that's really what I appreciate. It makes we're also unique, and to see expressions of what we collect and really what makes us happy is so fun to watch. And like you said earlier, I love seeing people's spaces. Always be like, oh, what they got.
Yeah, what is
Like,
that? Yeah.
right?
I
Where'd
can't
they
believe
get
she has
that?
that one.
I know. And then
Yeah.
messages and checking in with people. Oh, I love what you did with that. It's so encouraging. So that's been fun. And then I haven't been to any in-person events in a while, but when there are meetups or different events, I do like to meet some people in person too, when possible. That's fun. IRLs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just nice to be around, whether in person or online. Just, you have a community of people who are into the exact same thing that you are. And it's like it's literally a judgment-free zone, which is a
Yeah.
rare find, I think. And so it's very special to me, at least, just to have a
Same.
community to go to. And it's like, wow, we're all looking for this new Midge doll, you know?
Exactly. And I saw you found her, huh?
I
More than,
did.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
saw
took
that.
it took some, it took some hard work, but it was worth it. And I have so much fun
Right?
doing that. Like
Yeah.
the day I went to go look for her, I went to 12 Targets and I did
Uh,
not find her. Like, and
wow.
I was like, okay, well, I still had a good time. And then the next day I got a call from Target and they had her. And I was like, wow, okay, it all worked out. And it's just
See,
it's fun. And that whole day I'm online talking with people like, okay, what should I do? Like, and they're like, okay, take the UPC code inside and have them scan it. And you're like, okay, I'll do that.
that's
You
so
know,
fun.
it
Yeah. What an
is.
adventure. And we can relate to that and just like the fun of it. And then the aha, like, the exuberance when you did find her. So,
Yeah.
yay.
Very cool. So outside of Barbie, I know you talked about the Latinistas
Yeah,
and
I have
the
some yep, I've got Latinistas, I've got Naturalistas, and
Naturalistas.
then
Yeah,
the fresh dolls as well. So I do like to support those. Those are Black, female
of
owned,
course.
and I like what they're doing as well. It's disrupting too, and celebrating in the culture through those dolls. I like some Disney Elite Forever dolls, maybe even some old school Disney dolls as well. And then other dolls Mattel has done, like the Wild Hearts crew. I know they're not around anymore, but those were fun dolls too, so I like them. And then I just feel like every now and then I'm just open. Like if I see a doll, there's something special about them, I'll usually, grab them or gravitate. And then there's some collections I'm like, not really for me, but I always give them a double tap when I see them on other people's pages because I like how they've been styled and how they put them together if they're creating storylines and things like that. I love to see our individual expressions of creativity and what resonates with us. So that's fun. I like to support that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I have a couple of those. It's I don't know why it's so hard for me to say Latinistas and naturalistas. That's a hard word for me to say. I don't know why. I always mess it up, but I love those dolls. I think they're
They
beautiful. They've
are,
got some
yeah,
amazing hair too, which is
yeah.
like Barbie, step it
Some
up.
good quality for
Yeah, yeah,
sure.
yeah. And I love American Girl. I
Yeah.
love Britney. I love, and I love how in Doll World, like some people just focus on
Hmm.
one, and because that's even incredible to see, right? But
Yeah.
then it's also like for me, I mean, obviously, I think my focus would be more on Barbie, American Girl, Britney. But like, same thing. Like, if I see a doll and I'm like, wow,
Hmm.
she's
Okay.
cool, I'll
Right?
just buy her, and it doesn't matter. So it's just
Yeah.
interesting to see the scope of people's collections as well, I
Yeah,
think.
it is. It is. And that's what I love to see. I'm like, oh, what's he going to next? And it was just like, it's like a museum tour.
Yeah, that's what I try. That's the goal here. That it's like I want to make it like everything has their own space, but there's so many different things, you know what I mean? So every
Yeah.
time someone comes and visits, I'm like, okay, this is where we start and we work our way around, you know?
Yeah, you're such a great storyteller too.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes me so happy. I was stressed with that video just because like I said, halfway through I
It's a
was like,
lot.
mm-mm, I think this needs to change. And I'm like, I can't change it right now.
I
Uh,
never would have guessed. And then you came back and did your thing and then recorded the rest of it and put the clips together. Okay, yeah. Yeah.
yep.
He's the real deal, ladies and gentlemen.
I try my best. I try my best. And I had so much fun too. And I think at that point, I hadn't, like, once I put everything in here, it just kind of sat and I was like, all right, I'm good with it. I hadn't really like taken the time to go through it all. And I was like, oh my God, I forgot I had this. And like, oh, this should be over there. And it was stressful, but very fun for me just to, and I'm sure it's the same for you. I mean, when you, when you get so many things, like things get lost in the mix and you're like, shit, I forgot I had
I
that.
forgot. I
Or
forgot.
like, shit, I just rebought that. Damn it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I think I have
Yeah.
done that before. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Happens to me all the time. And I'm like, oh, oops, oh well. um, cool. I loved this conversation. Thank you so much, Cassie. This was so great. And I'm trying to focus on collectors this season of the Iconic Dollcast.
Yeah.
And I was like, she is a great person to have on the show. So I really appreciate you being on. I love that you bring your passions into teaching as well. I think that's so great. And it's so great that you're a college professor. Cause like you said, these are adults, right? And just being
Yeah.
able to bring, and I would still call them kids just cause, they're in their 20s. It's like you
Right.
are a child. It just must be so great to, I mean, you said it was just to bring them back to something that maybe they hadn't had in a while, or just maybe something they'd never seen in their whole life. Like, I think
Yeah.
that's incredible. So, thank you so much for doing this. Please let everyone know where they can find you on social media so they can see all the wonderful content that you create.
Yes, you can find me at Dolls on the Scene. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Sage. This was awesome.
Oh, that was so nice. Guys, I loved talking to Cassie. She was so kind, and I just had the best time. Cassie, thank you again so much for being on the show. I really appreciated this conversation. Continuing with Barbie next week, guys, it is Barbie's 66th birthday. We are going to be celebrating this occasion with my good friend Laura, who has been on the show several times. We have so far talked about Midge and Alan. We've also talked about Skipper. And next time, we're going to be diving into the life of Ruth Handler, which was a really fun and also loaded topic. So that'll be coming out next week, and you don't want to miss it. Laura is always such a blast, so I know you guys are going to love it. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you're enjoying the show, please give me a 5-star rating or leave me a nice review. It really helps. Follow me on Instagram at iconicdollcast or Britney Spears Custom Dolls. Follow me on TikTok at Britney Spears Dolls, YouTube, Iconic Dollcast, all the things, and I will talk with you guys next time.